是是诗是诗是是诗是时是诗是时时是是是诗 This is the beginning of a Chinese poem about a poet who went to the market to look for 10 lions. So does a poet and market and lion sound all the same in Chinese? No, lion is 诗 and market is 是. What makes them sound different? A tone, or a pitch contour of a syllable. Tones are meaning sensitive. That means that one and the same combination of sounds means different when pronounced with different tone. Ma means mother and ma means horse, so you want to be very careful when pronouncing Chinese words. Standard Chinese has 4 distinct tones and 1 neutral tone, which is also called zero or fifth tone. The number of tones in dialects, however, varies greatly. Western and northern dialects in China normally have fewer tones, and the number of tones grows greatly as you move south and east. In southern dialects, there might be up to 10 different tones. Shanghainese, for example, has 5 tones, and Cantonese has 9 tones, 6 of which are moderately distinguishable. So Mandarin Chinese with its 4 tones doesn't sound so bad, does it? So in this video I will briefly describe the 4 tones and then talk about the most tricky combinations when tones change to the point of being unrecognizable. The 4 tones are as follows. The first tone is flat and high. La, ma. You want to try to keep your voice even and high to the point of being monotonous for the whole duration of the syllable, as if you are singing or reciting one and the same note. Different people have different pitches of their tone due to personal characteristics. Women have a higher voice generally, and men maybe have a little bit lower voice. It doesn't matter. What matters here is that you want to keep it flat for the entire syllable. In transcription, you will see a straight horizontal line over the vowel of a syllable, or sometimes number 1 after the syllable. Let's listen to some examples.
八分一
车缺烟
The second is a rising tone. The pitch of your voice rises from the lower point to a higher point, where we had our first tone, remember? Ma, la. The easiest way to imagine it is as if you're asking a question. Ah, what? Now let's listen to some examples.
十和齐
没平前
The third is a dipping tone. It dips from a mid-high pitch to a low pitch and then rises again. 是 ma. Okay, now when pronounced separately, the dip is very distinct. Some people even pronounce it with a glottal stop. 早 gao. The voice kind of breaks at the lowest point. You might hear it especially from speakers from northern China. But this third tone becomes very different in fluent speech in combination with different tones, and probably the third tone is the one that changes the most when it's built into a phrase, when it's followed and preceded by different tones. And we'll get to that in just a few moments. Now let's listen to some examples.
几九早
买水两
The fourth tone starts high and then drops sharply to the lowest point, to the lowest pitch. English speakers often associate it with an angry command, so if it helps, you can think of it that way. Ma, la. Or alternatively, you can think of it as an affirmative end of phrase, as if it's your last word. Let's listen to some examples.
半六课
是下快
Now, with due practice, separate tones are quite manageable. However, it becomes a little bit more complicated when you combine them into words and phrases. Any language has a natural tendency to spend as little effort on pronunciation as possible, so some tones change a lot in speech. And when you hear a native person talking, you realize that they don't pronounce every tone as it is in the textbook. So to speak correctly and to understand other people, you need to learn not only separate tones, but rather the combination of different tones, how they are pronounced when they are put together. And that's tricky because some of them become really unrecognizable. Now, there are several basic rules for such combinations. First of all, two third tones don't go together. Think of them as two very hot-tempered people who just can't stand next to each other. The classic example of such combination is 你好. In phrases like this, the first syllable changes into second tone, so it becomes second and third. 你好. Other examples are 可以, 可以, and 很好, 很好. This makes sense when you think that third tone probably requires more muscle and more time to pronounce, so it's simply inconvenient to pronounce them one after another.
你好，手表，老虎，洗手，买水，辅导。
Now you might ask, okay, what happens when there are three third tones going together? Say in a phrase, to buy fruit. In such cases, we break the phrase down and see which syllables are more united by the meaning. In the fruit example, 水果 is one word, so 水 becomes 水, and then you can keep 买 as it is, and the phrase becomes 买水果. Let's take a longer phrase which consists of several third tones. The boss wants to buy fruit, and we get 老板想买水果. If you get a word or a phrase where all three syllables are equal and you can't really break them down by the meaning, they have the same connections between them, you just give the third tone for the very last syllable. As for example, the word 水彩笔. So this was the rule for two or several third tones. However, when a third tone is followed by any other tone, that is first, second, or fourth, it becomes half third tone. This is my favorite part. It sounds difficult, and what is that half third tone? I'm not really sure whether I pronounce the third tone correctly now. What is a half third tone? But when you master it, it takes your pronunciation to a whole new level. So the half third tone is a low falling tone. Yeah, it loses its rising component. In fluent speech, the fall is actually very tiny, very slight, and sometimes even indistinguishable. So you can think of it as just very low pitch. Let's take a look at the combination third and first. You have 北京, 北京. The first part is 北, very light, very low. 北, nothing special. 北京. The third tone here is very low, very indistinct. It has none of those roller coasters that you see as a separate third tone, yeah? Now listen to some more examples of this combination.
老师，每天，北风，火车，晚安，手机。
Same goes for third plus second. The third tone stays very low. You can think of it as a very low falling tone or just low tone. 美国，美国，小孩，小孩, and more examples.
感觉，选择，打球，表达，解决，友情。
Same for third plus fourth tone. 我要，我要，米饭，米饭. So again, the third tone stays very low, doesn't really go up, and this is what half third tone is. Let's listen to some more examples.
比赛，感冒，早饭，请假，考虑，准备。
So to improve your pronunciation and to understand native people speaking, practicing separate tones is not enough. Sometimes it's actually even counterproductive. You need to feel how the tones change when they're put together. So, right after you got the gist of the 4 tones, start practicing the combinations. Practice these patterns like third plus first, third plus second, third plus fourth. Once you can pronounce and distinguish such combinations, you will be able to put any sounds into those combinations and produce great native-like pronunciation. Okay, that was it for today. Remember to like this video so that more learners could see it, and hit the subscribe button to get more language learning tips and resources from me. Also, feel free to comment what other topics you would like me to cover, and 谢谢大家耐心观看，下次再见，拜拜。